To start off, paint me a picture, give me 30,000 feet of Netrio, kind of where we came from, where we're at today, and then where we're looking to go.
Yep. So just over 20 years old, we started in the space as an outsourced knock to service provider community. So that was kind of where the roots started. And in 2017, really started to move towards the enterprise MSP and MSSP space and started to head towards the channel with our business development model. So that's really where the focus. So we still support service providers and do the knock as a service for those providers, but primarily in the trusted advisor space, we're focused on managed services and managed security services from that perspective.
So, I mean, we've seen, obviously, we've collaborated on multiple projects. I mean, it's a crowded space of MSPs, right? And typically, whenever I'm looking for, if I'm working with an organization and we're trying to identify who's the right fit for them to do, to come in and do the takeover management, right, and ongoing support, a lot of it has to do with aligning the technologies that are in place today with the strengths and the portfolio of what the MSP has today, right? So that's where we can kind of basically, get rid of whoever's not the right fit. So one of the things I've noticed with you guys is you're pretty ubiquitous when it comes to those types of things, right? Meaning it doesn't matter if it's Cisco, it doesn't matter if it's Fortinet, it doesn't matter if it's Meraki, whatever it is, you guys are okay and you're set up to be able to do that. So can you speak a little bit more to that? And also, I mean, how do you guys kind of do that and still manage to provide a good level of support for so many different customers that look different on paper?
Yeah, you want to take that?
Sure. So obviously it's difficult to kind of get your arms around all the different OEMs, right? So we've spent a lot of times, my background came from the distribution side, so we were very VAR oriented, very OEM aligned. I think one of the unique things is we focus really on people, process, and tools, right? And everybody can come in and bring in good processes around ITIL, NIST, et cetera, right? You got to have that good foundation. Tool sets, the right tool sets, and there are a bunch of them, good tool sets, but really the investment in the people is where I think we make our mark. We focus a lot on basic technology training, routing and switching is routing and switching, right? You may have different routing protocols supported by certain OEMs, but really it's kind of the same motions and everything. So we provided, I think, a good opportunity for lateral and vertical movement within the organization. So there's a lot of mentoring, there's a lot of partnerships with local community colleges that specialize in cybersecurity, for example. So we really, I think, have ingrained that into our culture to always be pushing it forward, to always be pushing the envelope in terms of technical capabilities. And when you wrap those inside of the right processes and tools, you always have a predictable outcome that you can scale.
So I agree, because I think flexibility is one of the most attractive qualities as it comes to evaluating MSPs. Because the last thing that any person, any end user wants to hear when calling in is, "Oh no, that's not something that we support." Right? That's the absolute no. We don't. We can't allow for that to happen. So I think that's huge. And then in terms of the ongoing services, right? So there's coming from this space, right? We understand well listening to the customer and kind of changing what you're doing. So security's come heavy, right? I mean, you guys probably went from the level of security being antivirus on the endpoints and firewalls on the edge to then now kind of full-blown MDR, XDR, right? Kind of across the board. So I mean, how have we seen that play out over time? And how much are your customers relying on you to establish the framework that they're needing in order to be successful and secure versus them kind of having you take over what's in place?
We're seeing an evolution there. I mean, traditionally EDR, MDR, XDR, me too. My definition of what it is, and you can talk to. I think Chris says it all the time. You can ask 25 people, you get 30 definitions, right? Really taking that beyond, and you've heard a lot from some of the other partners. Is we focus on outcome, right? Understanding that it's just as important for a small business to have a good cybersecurity posture, because the bad guys don't care out there. They have port scanners are out there. If you're open, you're going to be hit, right? So I think one of the areas we focused on, like if you look at the cyber defense matrix, you have table stakes, you have cyber security insurance, you have industry specific. Everybody is at risk today, so they have to have like cybersecurity is our table stakes, right? So we have aligned kind of with the products and offers to be able to provide that as guidance. Some customers may come to us with specific compliance requirements around NIST, SP 800-171, right, for DoD contractors or whatever the case may be. But it matters to everybody. Just because you are not being forced to align with some compliance standard doesn't mean you don't need to. So people are starting to wake up to the fact that, yeah, I'm at risk, I don't really have a good comfort level, and they're looking to improve their cybersecurity and posture overall. So it's kind of coming from both sides. We're doing a better job of telling that story to them and explaining and their understanding, but also just the plethora of attacks and exploits and breaches and all that. Everybody's aware of it, so they know they're a target, or it doesn't take them long to convince them.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to dig into compliance. So GRC, the thought process around compliance, mapping where the world's going, which, we could say, oh, PCI compliance, HIPAA compliance, NIST compliance. The reality is, what should your compliance be for no matter what your vertical is? Because if you're not, insurance is going to come and they're going to say, well, you didn't have to be compliant, but let's be real, you weren't meeting the expectations of this contract, and we're not going to pay your $1 million, policy out, or you're going to have to fight it and you're going to have to prove it out. And so what are you seeing in the area of companies both that have to have compliance, that don't have to have compliance, that are playing to GRC and this GDPR kind of model around how that looks, how to model it out, how to be compliant? There's a lot of complexities around there. Even the United States, with certain subsets of states, are thinking or moving to that. You're going to see that with LLMs as well. And this AI world is going to drive that. AI compliance, a buddy of mine is building a business called Synergist, and I'm watching his software platform just start to transform and build into stories specific to a client going, hey, I live in Florida, I need to have this AI compliance in place. This AI system's telling a story, my employees are being let go, they're gonna sue me. So that story is becoming very real, states are going after it. So I really want you to dig in on insurance, compliance, the direction of it, and how the model between an MSP model and an MSSP model, which actually is a very unique differentiator for your company, because most companies don't blend the two. How do you keep that one against the other one separate? Because one doing compliance auditing and also delivering the experience is also a risk to a customer. So how do you manage that? How do you play that game? And what's that story you're telling?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's, the two sides of the coin. You can talk to some people and say they don't want all their eggs in one basket, fox guarding the hen house, whatever the case may be. The risk on the other side of that knife that cuts is that if you don't have some type of integrated workflow, then you have a disjointed process, right? And I've seen this play out many times. MSSP, who is not managing controls on those devices, that environment, they flag something. Who's it go back to? It goes back to the customer. They say, what the heck does this mean? Bad customers call me and say, what's a port scan? Well, here's what it is and here's what it means. But you're forcing the customer's hand on understanding that and knowing the right thing to do. Whereas in like a combined environment where you have MSSP and MSP segmented in terms of roles and responsibilities, but integrated within the same workflow, you have a very native, natural, quick IRP. So security analysts see something, they can go validate it, they can route it over to somebody in IT ops who manages the firewall, to whatever the server, wherever the device needs to be remediated, gets remediated, it gets signed back, it gets validated as fixed, and then it goes back. So the customer gets notification that yes, it got raised and it got fixed. They don't have to be participating in that at 2 a.m. Right?
So I love this concept. Now, sit in front of a customer. How do you visually start to map the transparency? Because so much of it's transparency. They want to see that you're tracking it from a transparency standpoint. Hey, I'm doing compliance and I'm doing compute and application delivery and management. How do you show them the transparencies in the models that you deliver your compliance report on?
Well, we do that a few ways. One is that, as you would imagine, going away from EDR, MDR, XDR, we've had to go kind of more consultative, right? We had to really beef up the CISO where we can go in and if somebody needs policies written, we can do that. We can understand what policies they need. We can help them with interpreting risk. We can do tabletop exercises, whatever, help prepare them for that, and all the way all through IRP. I think one of the hallmarks of our service is transparency in general. We're, I think, unique in that we do offer like co-managed environments where we give customers visibility into tools and notifications.
Is it read write or is it visibility only? Do you get read write visibility?
Either one. It depends. There's a license cost associated with the read write.
Right.
I mean, of course, if you give them read write, you have to have a good change of
I
mind.
guess it depends on
right?
whose system it is, right?
Yeah.
Is it theirs you
Yeah.
took over,
Yeah.
or is it yours?
Yeah,
Very true.
right, exactly.
Very true.
No, that's a great point. And that's another thing is we're not inflexible on, if they have a mature process around doing monitoring and all that, we don't necessarily say, hey, you got to throw the baby out with bathwater. We'll leverage that. Now we got to put some responsibility on them to do, to basically make a determination of what's actionable and, work with them as a partner. But again, it's a partnership more than it is us dictating because we have to understand.
Hybrid managed, and you're managing a subset of what they want. You might be secondary and they're primary.
Right.
So they're primary to that monitoring system, you're secondary to their monitoring system. Core person's gonna be out, they want you to take over the management of that, you're able to take over the management. Somebody leaves, you're managing that and taking that over.
Yep.
So part of the relationship, which actually living in this world for a long time, most IT leaders they don't get this. But it's not just the product or solution they're getting from you. It's the overall relationship and the understanding of the environment. Now, you're pointing to something that I'm going to leave here going, okay, very intriguing. If I'm a buyer, I'm going to want transparency in analytics associated to how one separate from the other one, from the MSSP model and the compliancy versus the compute and the delivery.
Right.
Okay, because a lot of times those two, when they come together, create some risk too to a company. And so I think maybe that's an area where I'd love you to really hone in on. Because I don't think very many people in the space have a blended strategy. So if they don't have this blended strategy, how would you tell a customer, you can come to us and we can deliver your MSSP model, okay, your compliancy sign-off model, okay, and deliver your IaaS, deliver your backup as a service. How do you
And help
position-
desk.
And help desk. How would you position that? Maybe primary, secondary solution is the support behind it. So I'm primary in this and I'm secondary in this. How would you position that?
It really depends on what the organization looks like. If they have an InfoSec, if they have an established InfoSec team, then they're going to make the call on that, and we're going to be largely sitting on the C, right? We're going to do compliance because they have governance, they're writing policies, they're doing risk management. We may assist with some of that, like patching, right? But that's really helping them with the compliance side. So we have to be very aware of what the environment is, who we're working with. It changes the approach.
Totally.
In all of those cases, though, I think that we want to be very open and transparent so that we can be held accountable, they can be held accountable, so you don't get into these issues where you're finger pointing or you have those gaps.
So documentation, for example,
Absolutely.
because we're going to sit here and we're going to share this to a client, okay? And that client's going to want to know what your deliverables are going to be.
Right.
And so much of this and so many MSPs fail at deliverables. They don't deliver the package, and then that's the aha moment. There's probably going to be gaps in actual delivery of the service.
Right.
And so when you think about that deliverable and what we can expect to hand to a customer, what does that look like? What does the scoping strategy look like? And then what does the deliverable look like?
I think we have, one of our advantages and one of the things we do very well is up front. We provide a lot of clarity, a lot of detail around what can be expected from a scoping perspective. So, for an asset class, we'll go in and we'll define, depending on what level of support they want. We have one where if we're going to be riding shotgun, they're first, we do these things, which is basically around, monitor, notify, remediate, tier 1 up to like 1.5, but maybe they have an engineering team that is tier 3 and they do these things. So first, you've got to be very clear on scope and responsibility.
Some mapping strategy
Yeah.
associated to
Yeah.
talent or resource management.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so we're very clear on that, and that flows through to kind of our budgetary quotes, that goes right down to it. And then we have levels of detail behind that, right? Service descriptions and things that at a SAL level, if they want to know what this really means, because people talk about it all the time, but people may not know what patching is, right? What do you really do for patching? So we're very clear and we're very thorough on what we set from an expectations standpoint, because that's how we measure ourselves, right? And then, of course, a lot of it, if you want to get back to the GRC part of it, is there's compliance as a service and things like that.
Yeah.
It's continuous monitoring, right? It's not a one-time, compliance is not a one-time event, right? We've got to be in there, we've got to say, let's make sure we understand what framework you have to comply with, let's get you there, and then let's have a measurement that we keep you there. Because the best thing we can do is maintain where there's no compliance drift, that we're spot on, so if they have somebody come in and do an audit, or the insurance company comes in, they are where they say they're going to be. And that's our biggest job.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have one for Chris. I'm going to close this out.
Sure.
So I've known you for 20 years, probably, I don't know, it goes back to probably 16 years ago.
2011.
Yeah. So, and I watched your career grow on the agent side and the consulting side into kind of get into this. So you've seen it from all sides. So, but in rapid scale, my whole job was to tell the agent channel the story of where they can go if they buy into the MSP model, and where they can go if they went on our compute because there was value there, where they go to get an experience, okay? So you've heard me pitch this for many years to you, and here I'm sitting here in a whole different role asking you what the unique experience is that I want you to pitch me, because I pitched it to you. I went on to build that story. That story is existing today. You compete in that space sometimes. So how would you differentiate, and what does that pitch to me? And to the clients. I mean, the clients are gonna listen to that. Because really, to be honest with you, it's about the buyers that we're gonna sit in front of. When we send this video and we say, I want you to get to know Netrio, I want them to get to know you as a face of our partnership. I want them to know and understand what that looks like. The technology side, I love. The story speaks for itself, which is why we just closed a large client with you. But what is it from your side when you think about what that looks like, from Netrio's perspective and how that's driven?
Well, a lot of things haven't changed over the course of. The company always wants to be easy to do business with. You have to be able to engage easily. We want to qualify or eliminate very quickly. So win fast, lose fast, right? We want to get into opportunities that make sense and where there's value. So I spend a lot of time talking about culture. Is this going to be a culture fit? We're gonna tell you. You're gonna tell us your story. We're gonna tell you our story. They may not align. They may want to consume support services in a totally different way than we do, and that's okay. But we believe in what we're doing. There are very few in our channel that do what we do and do it with the level of operational maturity. We were a operations-led organization, and when I entered the space in 2017, they were looking to do something different, and they wanted to get into the channel, and that was where I came from, right? I knew the channel. I knew the type of model, the consumption model that we needed to do. We needed to be transparent. We needed to make this really easy. The goal was really, can we do a 30-minute discovery, and can I turn around pricing to you in 5 or 10 minutes type of approach?
Yeah.
Right? Don't want to transactionalize it or anything like that, but that's kind of the goal, is we want to be able to quickly make sense of things, and the client on the other end feels that. If they go, wow, they usually connect pretty quickly. So I'd say, for most clients, probably 85-90% of them, this model resonates with them, right? But for some, they may say, well, I just want to use you when I want to use you, or I want something hourly, I want something ticket-based. And for those, we can shake hands and they can do
Yeah, but listen, there's two sides of this model. There's a bar base that says, I'm going to set it up and you're going to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
And then your model crosses two areas, which is pretty unique. Three, if you think about it. You got security and compliance business model and MSP model.
Mm-hmm.
Well, security model. And then you have the compliance model, which doesn't always sit within the MSP model. It's usually kind of separate from that. Pen testing, digging in, building and providing the reports. And then you got the MSP, the service delivery component that with support behind it.
Well,
So there's actually a lot there.
yeah, so let me explain. So I think it's important to understand this. So we had a services organization, again, operational maturity, all those things. So we started with, it was really focused on MSP services. And then, of course, the next step was to focus on the EDR, MDR, XDR, the services, the SOC, the SIM, like all those service offerings. But we were missing a lot of those, the compliance, the pen testing, the VC. So we brought an individual, 40 years in the cyberspace, dual PhDs, a network that you would, everyone would be jealous of as far as from a cyber perspective. So that individual, Kevin, I'm sure is his name, so he leads our cyber practice. His network of CISO resources is second to none. So we have the ability that a lot of other organizations don't, where we can pull these resources in and are able to focus in on whatever those, again, if it's policy development, tabletop exercises, all these things that need to happen, and the cadence that needs to take place within those, while the other side of the business is focused on all of the operational support, the day-to-day stuff. So it's really, a unique happen chance that we all kind of formed this bond and this relationship where we were complementing each other. They wanted to get into opportunities and they wanted to get into the enterprise clients that we were in. We needed their book and their expertise and their services.
Isn't it funny? But isn't it funny how the channel can build a story for a company where they don't even know how to build the story, and the pieces start to fall in place? Because the channel will come to you with opportunity that normal clients will never give you off a direct sales model. So it's funny because what I hear here is that there's the channel, since your entry, has started to help the company build its story, mature its story into a formidable player in the space.
100%.
Coming in on that note, that's it.
Hey, boys,